Welcome to Wandering with the Whites. Join us on our trip west this year from McKinney, Texas to Roswell, Tombstone, Tucson, Cottonwood, Albuquerque, back to Roswell, and home to McKinney. So here we are getting the bus out of storage, ready to go. It's a 99 Tradewinds, real nice diesel pusher bus. We'll get everything hooked up, get the Jeep attached, and we're on the road. We're headed west on State Road 380. It goes all the way from McKinney to Roswell. Very pretty ride. Most of it 2-lane, but some 4-lane sections. But notice those clouds, how ominous. Welcome from Travel Day 1. We're here in Aspermont, Texas. We left McKinney this morning, had a 4-hour travel day, and we're all set up and plugged in, and we're getting ready to make some dinner. Deb was thoughtful enough to make some meatloaf already, so we're all set to go. This is a nice little campground. It's a self-serve. You put the money in the envelope, stay the night, and take off. So that's where we are today. We departed on day 2 to a light rain, which quickly turned to freezing rain and ice. So we returned back to Aspermont for day 2 and day 3. And that's just a little of the ice buildup on the Jeep from our first trip 2 miles down the road. By day 4, we were back on the road again. We go through many West Texas towns with such interesting architecture and history, I'm sure. Just look at these old buildings. This is the town of Jacksboro. And it makes the ride out State Road 380 much more interesting with these old towns to drive through and look at. When we arrived in Roswell, the first order of business was to get some of the salt off the Jeep. So a quick run through the car wash got us all fixed up. Day 5, we departed Roswell and headed for the town of Deming, where we would spend the night. The ride from Roswell through the mountains, down through White Sands, and on into Deming is a beautiful ride. Again, a 2-lane road with very little traffic. We arrived at our campground, Tombstone Territories Campground, just outside of Tombstone. It's an excellent spot, well-kept park, and it's central to everything. So it's a great place to stay if you're out that way. Good morning. Today we're at the Fairbank House. It's kind of a ghost town that's been restored. It's a cool old place. And we're just stopping here for a visit. We've been here once before, but they've restored a lot more of it. No trip to Tombstone would be complete without seeing the OK Corral, the Birdcage Saloon, and I enjoyed seeing the 1882 Tombstone Courthouse. It's a state park, and it's open to the public. It's excellent. I enjoyed the upstairs, the courthouse part, and many of the exhibits. Deb didn't care for it, but she was dealt with accordingly. Following our trip to Tombstone, we moved a little further south to the mining town of Bisbee. We had hoped to see the mining museum, but they were closed the day we were there. Well, here we are in Bisbee, Arizona. This was an open pit mine called the Queen Mine. It is a huge hole in the ground. And I'll turn the camera around and you get a better look. But here you can see the open pit mine. It is a long way down there. That is a deep hole. And there were millions of tons of gold, silver, and other minerals extracted from this hole in the ground, plus driven mine that's further back up the hill. The next day, we took a ride to look at a ghost town. It's a trail ride. It's up in the Santa Rita Mountains, and gold was discovered there back in 1874. It became a camp, and they started to mine gold there. Today there's several adobe buildings, and they've been preserved quite well. The historic preservation has been underway since 1991 via the Forest Service, who owns the property. Our next stop was in Tucson, where we visited the Air and Space Museum, or at least I did, not one of Deb's favorite stops. So she went to the Rock and Gem Show, where I did not take any pictures. In Tucson, we stayed at the Cactus Country RV Park, and it was a beautiful spot, middle of the desert. While we were in Tucson, we took a ride through the Saguaro National Park, and it's a lovely loop ride with lots of vegetation to look at and cactus trees, and there was a lunch involved too, which is always one of my favorites. After seeing the sights in Tucson, we traveled on to Quartzsite. Quartzsite's an interesting place, and we found a nice level spot to camp, and rolled her in here and broke out all the camping equipment, and we were settled in for a few days here in Quartzsite. Since we had to run the generator from time to time, Deb took the opportunity to make some bread and some good meals while we're out there in the desert. We have to run the generator to charge the batteries every day, so it gets to run for an hour. We were fortunate to have cell phone signals, so we could use our electronic devices. The drawback at Quartzsite is it's quite dusty when you're out in the middle of nowhere. Of course, while we were there, a leak developed, and I thought it was the toilet, but alas, it was this air relief valve that's located up in the wall. I thought it was quite nice of them to hide it in the wall that way, and after 2 trips to the hardware store, we got the problem resolved. And Deb got a chance to get some of her new rocks that she acquired in Quartzsite and treat them with smoke from the campfire. We departed Quartzsite and headed to Cottonwood, where some of our normal chores caught up with us. We left Cottonwood driving through Flagstaff on our way to see the Petrified Forest. Unfortunately, it was snowing like the devil, and there was snow on the ground when we arrived. Being unable to see the Petrified Forest, we moved on to Albuquerque to get one of our favorite meals, a Laguna Burger, at the famous Route 66 Cafe, and then continued on to Roswell. The ride to Roswell is awesome, as it's a 4-lane road, straight as a die, and it's a wonderful trip. We arrived at the same campground we stayed on in Roswell on the way out, and just had a single night there before heading back. This park is named Trailer Village, and it's a nice, well-kept, clean park, and easy to get on and off the road, and lots of spacious sights. As I hooked up the utilities in Aspermont and turned on the water, I noticed water dripping out of the side of the bus. Never a good sign. So a broken hose canceled that night's stay, and we returned to McKinney since it was just another 4 hours down the road. Unfortunately, night fell upon us, and the bus is no fun to drive at night. Well, thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed our trip.